Chosen one. There are forces in this world that have tried to keep your name out of history books. But the truth is far older than the silence they crafted. Elon Musk didn't stumble upon your fortune by chance. He uncovered something that's been buried beneath layers of misinformation, behind bloodlines that feared your very existence. The vibration in your DNA, yes, that ancient pulse you've always felt, but couldn't explain, was never just a feeling. It's proof. They tried to keep you locked in doubt, confused by distractions, disempowered by systems meant to numb your senses. But your very essence is incompatible with corruption. You were never meant to blend in with the noise of the world. You were born to awaken it. And now, with the precision of a man obsessed with uncovering the future, Musk found a trail, a signal, something untraceable to the average eye, but undeniable in its power. You. The secret is this: your existence was prophesied in rooms you were never invited into. Vaults lined with forbidden records spoke of a lineage, unbent, untouched, and spiritually sovereign. A bloodline that could not be bought, bound, or broken. That's what they feared. That's why they tried to erase it. And now, as the truth resurfaces, even the most powerful minds of this age are being forced to acknowledge what's always been hidden in plain sight. You are the key, and your inheritance is awakening with you. Have you started to feel it calling? In you, that flame is alive. You never really belonged because of that. Systems made a concerted effort to shatter you because of this. And for that reason, invisible forces are still frantically trying to stop what has already started. They never realized, however, that when truth is present, deceptive power is undermined. And the very fact that you are here is an act of war against the false kingdoms of this world. You are a whispered warning that their hold on this reality is ephemeral and borrowed, the echo of an ancient uprising that started far before recorded time. Even their highest councils are unaware of some things. They have information that is older than their blood pledges and hidden deeper than their dark files. They were afraid that someone might wake up one day and realize not just who they were, but also what they were carrying. You embody that prophecy in action. Your blood contains frequencies that break their spells and dispel their illusions, creating a melody they are unable to understand. They believed they could use old seals that were engraved with mantras taken from lost regions to tie your lineage. They engraved symbols to stifle those they felt might rise beyond their control in the hidden passageways under the oldest cities in the world. Chains were never intended for members of the forbidden lineage. In an attempt to contain something that was never intended to be tamed, the desperate elite created illusions that were thicker than steel and thicker than stone. The world changed when you were born, silently, as if there were a pressure under the surface of things, but not in a manner that most people would notice. Some refer to the tracking of certain bloodlines from the time of birth and the placement of observers masquerading as regular men throughout their lives as coincidence. But it's dread, not coincidence. Fear that when the proper soul went through the appropriate lineage, the seals that had been put in place so long ago would come loose. The tremor that shocks those seals at their foundations is carried by you without even attempting. These seals were made with more than just symbols. They were made with the intention of lulling you into oblivion and drowning your soul in the cacophony of a false world. Systems of religion, entertainment, and education were built on top of the seals, heavy and oppressive, so that even if you stirred, you would question yourself before you questioned the cage. However, souls selected by the divine cannot be housed in cages made by humans. Ancient texts hint to a generation that would be free and able to see through the deceptive construction. You belong to that generation, which is a live rift in the old family's ambitions. They see you with fear rather than adoration, because your entire being speaks of a dominion not created by humans, an authority they cannot create. During his earthly ministry, Yeshua spoke against those who believed their empires would last forever and disregarded the real cornerstone. They had always been afraid of the bloodline, not understanding that once truth wakes, no power, no structure, and no magic could stop its reverberation. Nothing created against you will stand because you are a catalyst woven into your body, not just a result of your lineage. The old seals still get fragile. Dreams arrive more quickly. You get memories that you can't describe. Synchronicities seem to be a response from the very fabric of existence. It's not your imagination. It's the sound of the old shackles cracking beneath the weight of who you were destined to be. The bursting of seals that never intended to confine you. The elite thought you would be buried by time, that the initial power you had would be diminished by decades of diversion and distortion. They have been observing for generations, while remaining unseen behind organizations, governments, and businesses that seem to benefit the globe, but are really supporting an old dread. Although some of them pretend to be guys in suits, sitting in smoky boardrooms, these viewers are not. Those who track bloodlines, discern frequencies, and keep an eye on souls for the warning signs of waking are the true watchers. They know that certain lineages possess a brightness that no darkness can smother, something that the majority of the world has been brainwashed to forget. The observers sensed when you started to awaken to the sense that something was amiss in this world, when the curtain loosened and you saw beyond the conventional wisdom. Even though they may not have recognized your name right away, they could sense the tremor in the field, which is similar to a ripple in calm water caused by a stone being tossed. It is not intended for bloodlines such as yours to awaken. They should be forced to follow meaningless objectives in a labyrinth created by unseen hands, hidden under layers of indoctrination and suffering. However, you were never intended to sleep indefinitely. A sudden burst of intuitive understanding in individuals whose DNA held the forbidden resonance, certain dreams shared among distant souls, and symbols appearing without prompting were the first indicators of the silent fear. They had persuaded themselves for ages that they had plenty of time and that their diversions would suffice. The robustness of the design was not taken into consideration. The spirit that refused to die despite being hungry, silenced, and humiliated was not taken into consideration. They watched you because they felt you couldn't be controlled the way others could, not because you were weak. In the hopes that you would disqualify yourself before you even realized the authority ingrained in your own being, they designed methods to cause you to question yourself. However, authority is not derived from human consent. Alignment with the one who spoke being into existence is the foundation of authority. According to Yeshua, the tares and the wheat grew together until their separation. The wheat that was sown on hostile soil is you, selected one. The harvest is now coming. The watchers are disturbed by your presence among the tares because it means that the rain they believe to be forever is coming to an end. You are the surging flood that they cannot foresee, control, or resist. They erected their castles on shifting sand. Every step you take in the direction of your actual nature intensifies their worry. Not the public panic, but the covert panic in the secret rooms, the desperate recalculations of techniques that no longer work. There is a seed of truth growing faster than they can pull it out for every falsehood they have planted in the earth. And the live evidence that their time is running out is you. Oaths were taken in secret locations long before you were born, long before your first breath disturbed the fragile strands they had weaved across the world. The type muttered in blood, bound by darkness and dread, rather than the sort proclaimed out. Elite families, with more knowledge than their official histories acknowledge, were aware that a lineage would eventually arise that would be able to destroy their painstakingly built empires without ever using force. The frequency you convey, the quiet resonance that breaks their spells without a word, was what they dreaded, not your physical appearance. The oaths were last-ditch vows, sealed with ceremonies that, if ever made public, would be too dreadful for the world to comprehend. Before your bloodline could completely awaken, they promised to keep an eye on it, control it, and, if needed, eradicate all traces of it. These families forged alliances with powers they hardly comprehended in hidden rooms, under family estates, and remote strongholds obscured by darkness and terrain. They felt that the only way to maintain the lineage of the chosen ones hidden under layers of delusion, terror, and artificial identity was to exchange their humanity for power. For a large portion of your existence, you were ignorant that you carried the danger they had been working for generations to eliminate. It was part of an ancient pledge to make you forget who you are before you can ever recall it. This includes every manufactured restriction, every deliberate trauma, and every social mold created for you. However, memories inscribed in spirit may only be postponed. It cannot be completely erased. Even today, shards of old wisdom reappear in your dreams, intuitions, and silent outbursts of defiance against a reality that never seemed quite right. They wanted you to be cut off from your origins for certain reasons. You don't seek for the crown that is already yours when you feel inadequate. You don't question the fake maps that are given to you while you're lost. However, you broke their spells a little more each time you asked a question or refused to conform to their expectations. They dreaded your remembering more than they feared your wrath or even your resistance, because remembrance wakes authority and power destroys the systems that were constructed on stolen thrones. No one can serve two masters, Yeshua said. These oath-takers sealed their destiny by selecting their Lord a long time ago. Their vows were taken in terror, but your awakening is taking place in strength. Power that comes from alignment with something much more powerful than their sinister covenants, not from dominance. You were made to lead a dominion that does not submit to phony kings or thrones. You were not made to be dominated by terror. The pledges they once trusted are now starting to fall apart with each pulse. They committed themselves to a future that has vanished, a chronology that is breaking under the pressure of your coming back. And like a river bursting through old crumbling walls, no amount of deception or concealment can keep them safe from the truth that rises through your lineage. Before history was altered by conquerors and the globe was divided into kingdoms and empires, there were texts that were never intended for general consumption. These were not just learned writings. Rather, they were dynamic, living works that contained truths so disruptive that whole armies were waged to bury them. They described a genealogy woven with light so pure that even the oldest thrones would shudder at its stirring, a lineage that would arise after countless eons of darkness. Never was your awakening a coincidence. It was predicted, guarded, and concealed behind the pages of these outlawed books. More than only lineages were documented in these ancient books, which were protected by invisible organizations and kept in the secret collections of the elite. For spirits sent here to destroy the fake constructions based on control and fear, they documented spiritual architectures, heavenly blueprints. You weren't just born, you were sent, sown like a seed in the middle of deceit, and you were meant to blossom just when the shadows believed their power was unassailable. The banned texts described people who would recall without instruction and whose inherent wisdom would awaken without outside approval. They attempted to destroy these documents. They lighted fires. They leveled libraries. Few people could uncover the hidden passageways where the scrolls were secreted. However, remnants persisted, dispersed like embers over the globe, awaiting the designated ones to sense their summons. It is the echo of what was written about you before your body ever developed. When you experience those inexplicable bursts of memory, those unexpected links to things you were never taught. You are alive, breathing prophecy. The ancient families have always understood that internal incitement, rather than external insurrection, posed the biggest danger to their rule. They were aware that the books they attempted to conceal were the ones that bore the blueprint for their downfall. They created religions that told half-truths for this reason. Why they supported ideologies that decried direct experience, while praising mindless obedience. All of it was a barricade to keep you from seeing, a sound to block out the voice that was already murmuring inside of you. In a quote from Yeshua, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." This statement is not provided or granted by a third party. Known means remembered. Your path was always intended to be one of remembering, of removing the layers until you found yourself standing in the completeness of your true self. Empires do not offer people freedom. For individuals who have woken to their purpose, it is their natural condition. The throb of those banned texts is becoming more audible. Their words now blaze straight into the air around you, when they were before concealed by stone and parchment. You are fulfilling history, not only reading it. A new chapter is written with each step you take towards self-determination, and no evil force can erase it. Your blood was already sending out a signal long before you knew who you were. Through frequency, a quiet transmission with codes deeper than the seas and older than the mountains, rather than through words or deeds. It was never really feasible to jam this signal, despite every desperate attempt to conceal you, divert your attention, or quiet you. In an attempt to block out the source of what they could never touch, the designers of control constructed towers of noise and covered the planet with an unceasing stream of diversion. The mind is not the source of your signal. The body is not the source of it. It comes from the basic structure of who you are, initiated before the world's foundations were established. It cannot be erased by ritual. It cannot be blocked by technology. They created complex systems to slow your heart, dampen your soul, and train your thinking. However, despite all the layers they placed on top of you, the signal stayed intact and continued to pulse continuously. It is the vibration of divine memory that awakens others who were meant to resonate with the same holy frequency, summoning not only you, but also those dispersed across our world. You touched one of those concealed marks. Each time you listened to that inner voice that defied the logic of the systems around you and refused to crumble under pressure. Even if you couldn't articulate it, you probably sensed a pull towards something greater when you were a little child. A feeling that you were destined to discover something that had been lost and that everyone else seemed happy to ignore. Never was it a dream. Through the commotion, you were called forward by the dim recollection of your task. The marks react to spirit, to the profound resonance that cannot be manufactured or faked. Not to riches, not to position, and not to intelligence. And that resonance is embedded into your very existence, selected bloodline. They made an effort to map it, to analyze it, to figure out why certain people, in spite of everything, kept glowing after going through every mechanism that was put in place to stop them. They overlooked the fact that human volition was never at play here. It has to do with heavenly design. Your blood contains spiritual agreements made in invisible worlds, in addition to genetic memory. This explains why you may feel older than the people around you at times. This is the reason you possess knowledge that defies explanation and instincts that triumph over the erroneous reasoning of the systems you were raised in. That's why something inside of you refused to go out entirely, even when you questioned yourself. Yeshua said that the kingdom was inside, not in the imposing temples or the opulent establishments, when he was among the broken and lost. He indicated an internal reality that was inaccessible to any kind of authority. That same reality, that same unbreakable kingdom, is imprinted in your soul and bone marrow. Every time you choose truth over comfort or fate over fear, it hums softly under the surface. The airways might be jammed. History might be changed by them. They could cause mental fog. However, they were never able to get to the location where the real signal was moored. That location was protected, kept out of reach, and awaited its designated moment.